Picture an era when every local theater reeked of spent shell casings and desperate choices. It was a time of pure, unfiltered cinematic adrenaline. During the spring of 1987, Warner Brothers unleashed a gritty police drama that refused to soften its edges for the mainstream. This production was never intended for a family outing on a Sunday afternoon. Richard Donner directed a script born from Shane Black's dark imagination. The narrative thrived on profound sorrow and white-hot anger, balanced only by enough dark wit to keep the story from shattering. Mel Gibson took the lead as Martin Riggs, a man who had lost his light and become a walking hazard to himself. Danny Glover played Roger Murtaugh, a devoted father who spent 4 films claiming he had outgrown such dangerous nonsense. While it appeared to be a standard detective flick, it actually dismantled the entire genre and rebuilt it into something legendary. Here are 15 surprising secrets about this masterpiece that show how easily this story could have gone in a different direction. Stay tuned for our top entry, which involves a massive payday for a writer who was only 23 years old. That famous script nearly ended up in the garbage before filming began. Join our community to help other fans find these vintage stories. We start our countdown at number 15 with a revelation about the hero's fate. He was never supposed to survive the final act. There was no plan for Martin Riggs to return for another adventure. He was destined to perish before the final credits rolled. In the earliest concepts, this was not the start of a series but a crushing tale of a man's ultimate downfall. Our hero begins the story in total darkness and finds a way to exit the world with a sense of finality. He was meant to find his final rest by sacrificing himself for a friend. The writer held firm to this grim conclusion initially. An early follow-up script was titled Play Dirty and featured the protagonist meeting a violent end after his final confrontation. He even left behind a recorded farewell for those he loved. However, the studio executives were terrified of killing their golden goose. The people in charge rejected that ending immediately. This forced the director to capture 2 very different conclusions on film. Early audiences strongly preferred seeing the hero live, so the darker footage was locked away in a deep, dark vault forever. That battle of ideas left a mark on the film. The massive original script was heavily modified to change the overall feeling. A different writer helped tone down the brutality to focus more on the magical bond growing between the 2 leads. The original creator was so frustrated by the lighter tone that he walked away from the project after the second installment. He decided he was finished with the series. At number 14, we look at the real age of our favorite veteran detective. The character Roger Murtaugh constantly complained about his advancing years. However, the actual birth dates tell a much different story. When production started in 1986, the character was celebrating 5 decades of life. He was written as an old man. The script treated 50 as if it were the end of the road. In reality, the actor was only 40 years old. There was only a 10-year gap between the veteran and his supposedly much younger, reckless partner on the force. The crew used silver makeup to age him and convince the world he was one chase away from a hospital bed. The disguise was perfect, and his famous complaints about his age immediately became part of the American cultural vocabulary. That sentiment lasted much longer than the films themselves. It became a universal way to express being completely exhausted by life. People started saying it in their 20s as a way to vent. It was a viral sensation long before the internet existed. It perfectly captured the feeling of being finished with the day's stress. Moving to number 13, the combat was remarkably authentic. Most action sequences in the 80s looked more like a rehearsed dance than a real struggle for survival. This movie wanted the viewers to feel every blow. The director had no interest in making the fights look pretty or fake. He wanted the hero to seem truly lethal. This meant teaching the actors combat styles that were unknown to most audiences then. The stars studied a variety of techniques to ensure the violence felt gritty and deeply uncomfortable to watch. They practiced Brazilian grappling and a specific style of fighting that was born within the walls of American prisons. One actor added his own martial arts skills to the role and later said the film started a lifelong passion. The lead actor spent 4 hours every day for over a month mastering these moves before filming even began. The ultimate goal was to make the audience believe these 2 men truly wanted to break each other apart. They even showcased a specific submission hold that was a complete mystery to most viewers back in the 80s. This was years before professional cage fighting went mainstream. At number 12, a terrifying stunt was done for real. That scene where the hero jumps off a tall building while shackled to a witness involved no digital trickery at all. Computers in 1987 were barely capable of simple tasks. They couldn't simulate a person falling through the air. The crew relied on old-school physics and nerves of steel. Professional stunt performers took the actual plunge from the roof. Imagine the peril if those shackles were genuine. One mistake might have transformed a daring leap into a heartbreaking tragedy. Instead, the production utilized fragile props designed to fracture instantly, allowing the pair to simply clasp hands and mimic a life-or-death struggle. It felt hauntingly beautiful. However, Mel Gibson wasn't the type of performer to stay tucked away in safety while cameras rolled. He demanded to stand on that precipice, personally concealing security gear beneath his costume, even as he prepared to defy survival instincts. The star truly took that step into the void. At position 11, we find a tribute to a true pioneer of the craft. Lethal Weapon's thrilling moments didn't emerge from digital trickery or youngsters fueled by energy drinks. Every frame relied on the weight of human bone, the pull of the earth, and the very real danger of movement. As the final names scroll by, we see a heartfelt salute to Dar Robinson, recognized as a premier talent in physical performance. This wasn't mere industry flattery. Over 13 years, this man shattered 21 global milestones through sheer bravery. Acting as the lead safety expert, he stood in for Mel Gibson while mentoring the supporting cast in the art of falling. Dar Robinson specifically coached Jackie Swanson to plummet for her introductory scene, ensuring she handled the terrifying descent without a double. Back during 1986, correcting footage involved titles rather than defying gravity. Then, late November arrived. Tragedy struck shortly after wrapping when Dar Robinson perished during a routine bike maneuver for a small comedy project. The accident occurred during a simple passage that no one expected to be hazardous, proving how fragile these moments truly are. Sometimes the price of a great story is measured in souls rather than dollars. Now, let's look at number 10. Consider the melody that feels like a lonely street lamp at 3 in the morning. Most 80s blockbusters relied on heavy percussion and electronic beats. Lethal Weapon took a detour, pairing a soulful guitar with a melancholy saxophone to capture a sense of deep, aching sorrow. Collaborating with Michael Kamen icons, Eric Clapton and David Sanborn wove a tapestry of sound that felt unexpectedly sophisticated for the genre. This musical choice was profound. The weeping notes of the electric strings mirrored the fractured psyche of Martin Riggs. Meanwhile, the saxophone echoed Roger Murtaugh's steady heartbeat, the sound of a reliable father who keeps his world in balance. It was the anthem of a suburban life versus the chaotic noise of a man with nothing left to lose. The two instruments danced around one another, echoing the way these two partners eventually found a common rhythm. The clashing styles shouldn't have harmonized yet, they provided the movie with its very soul. It was a depth few peers possessed. Moving to number 9, we discover a connection that was never supposed to exist. While modern studios obsessively plot out interconnected worlds, sometimes the universe simply aligns through pure nostalgic coincidence. Early on, we hear Roger Murtaugh reminisce about his difficult tour during the conflict in Southeast Asia. He recalls his days as an officer in 1965, specifically mentioning the harrowing combat within the Ia Drang Valley. A comrade saved his life during a brutal close-quarters struggle, a detail meant only to flesh out the weary detective's past. It was a throwaway line, a bit of color to make his retirement-ready attitude feel earned and lived in. Flash forward 15 years and Mel Gibson leads a powerful war drama titled We Were Soldiers. The actor portrayed Hal Moore, the actual commander, during that same battle in that exact valley during that same year. If you enjoy a bit of movie magic, it implies Martin Riggs was once the superior of his future partner, Roger Murtaugh. The timeline is flawless, though the scenery featured far more combat helicopters than the streets of Los Angeles. Fans have delighted in this accidental bridge between stories for decades now, weaving their own secret history. There is a poetic irony in the idea that the wild, unstable partner once held authority over the man who constantly tells him to slow down. While today's franchises use hidden teasers and massive investments to link stories, this was achieved with a single bit of dialogue. It remains one of the most organic bridges in cinema history. On to number 8. The spark between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover was instantaneous, bypassing the usual corporate scrutiny and endless focus groups. Forget technical combat, the only goal was to see if these two souls could truly connect. Director Richard Donner ignored the traditional red tape summoning Mel Gibson from Australia and Danny Glover from the Midwest. He locked them in a space with nothing but the script and their own raw talent to guide them. In a heartbeat, they began a verbal dance that felt as if they had known each other since childhood. Richard Donner watched in awe, realizing he wasn't just directing a scene but witnessing the birth of a cultural phenomenon. Whether it was pure vision or a lucky roll of the dice, the result was undeniable cinematic lightning. Once the reading concluded, the search was over. The director knew he had captured something that would endure for generations. Leadership greenlit production. Marion Doherty championed the pairing. Richard Donner prioritized soul over strategy. He realized their bond defined everything. Fireworks were secondary. Brief meetings sparked 4 legendary blockbusters. Billion-dollar success followed. That gamble remains cinematic history, halfway. Remembering weary, grit-covered heroes, if this resonates with you, join our community. Your support outweighs any internal investigation. 7th spot, Gary Busey. He brought pure, spine-chilling menace. Antagonists usually falter. This story required a genuine predator. Producers demanded danger. They wanted someone capable of killing Mel Gibson. Busey arrived transformed. He looked ready for a private war. 60 pounds lighter, he carried a haunting, silent intensity. Breaking wood without sound, he unsettled everyone in the room. That sufficed. Richard Donner found the threat the movie required. Busey stayed submerged in darkness. His presence felt consistently lethal. Career-saving commitment. He shifted from falling star to ultimate villain. Mr. Joshua redefined him. He became the face of instability. Number 6, Festive Carnage. People debate other Christmas classics. This film is draped in tinsel and holiday loneliness. Festive music underscores tragedy. It is a seasonal pressure cooker. Drugs and despair meet holiday tunes. Merry, gritty Christmas. Shane Black weaponized the holidays. Joy makes isolation feel louder. Martin Riggs struggles alone while families celebrate and argue. Grief clashes with tradition. The ending is not just fire. It is a lonely man finding a place at dinner, trading a bullet for a family meal. Pure redemptive hope. It is a holiday staple. Redemption served over warm rolls. Number 5, Bruce Willis almost played the lead role. Martin Riggs nearly had another face. Bruce declined the violence. Hilarious considering his future. Mel Gibson had declined the skyscraper. Fate swapped their paths. Both became icons of action. Creative DNA connects them. Joel Silver oversaw both masterpieces. Michael Kamen's scores linked them. They share a cinematic soul. Rumors suggest they shared props, the same Beretta 92F. Crossovers continued behind scenes. Script ideas moved between franchises. Third outings were repurposed. The universe kept folding inward. A kid watches the film on screen. A perfect loop. Number 4, the television spin-off that eventually fizzled out. Studios stretch success too thin. 2016 brought a remake. Weekly episodes reimagined the duo. New faces, same tired shoes. Wayans and Crawford took the lead. The legacy continues. Protecting family took priority. He made time for vengeance. The small screen lacked the original's gritty cinematic magic. Adaptation is difficult. The original lightning stayed in the bottle. Fans remember the chemistry. The show struggled to maintain it. History remembers the movie. The TV series is a footnote. Our lead embraced that volatile spirit, perfectly capturing the unpredictable nature we all remember. I still wonder if he lost himself in that dark role. This deep commitment eventually backfired, leading to his departure in 2018. It was a heavy price for such a visceral performance. Stories from the set suggested a reality far more unstable than the fiction itself, prompting a move the films avoided. They ended his journey forever. By finishing that character's story, the network hoped a fresh face like Sean William Scott could save the day. It was a desperate gamble for survival. This newcomer played a steady veteran, bringing a sense of order that felt foreign to the show. We could all feel the old magic slipping away. The audience's interest faded alongside the familiar bond they cherished. People simply weren't ready to trade a legend for a stranger. Then, the remaining star walked away after 3 years, citing the physical toll of endless production days. It felt like the final breath of the series. By that moment, the program had exhausted its stars and the goodwill of those watching at home. There was nothing left to hold on to. The journey concluded in 2019, proving that some lightning belongs only on the silver screen. The original films held a secret. That masterpiece relies on keeping the madness strictly within the pages. Interestingly, the veteran partner wasn't originally defined by his background. Roger wasn't created with a specific heritage in mind, just a deep sense of fatigue and a hope for peace. He was a man out of time. He just wanted a warm cup of coffee and a quiet path toward his final day on the job. That simple exhaustion was the whole point. The early script never mentioned race, once focusing entirely on the weight of his years. It makes you reconsider everything we think we know. His identity was built on his family and his desire to finally stop dodging danger. Everything else was an open book for the right soul. During the search, the director initially pictured a familiar white face following the standard patterns of that era. We often overlook the unexpected. That vision remained until a clever mind suggested a talent from a powerful period drama. One question can change the face of a classic. The suggestion of Danny Glover made the filmmaker realize his own narrow perspective. It was a quiet awakening that changed his entire outlook. Realizing the pages offered no restrictions, he felt a bit foolish for his initial blindness. It is funny how our minds build walls. He laughed at his own biases, recognizing the brilliance in a choice he almost missed. It's a humbling moment for any great creator. That realization led them to simply choose the finest actor for the part. Sometimes the most obvious choice is the one we fear. His background was secondary to his talent, and they let the work speak for itself. No fanfare was needed for such a perfect fit. A single person's insight and a director's honesty gave us a brotherhood for the ages. It's beautiful how mistakes turn into legends. The movie also gave us a look at the very first portable gadgets. It wasn't just a film. It was a window into tomorrow. While we watched the mystery unfold, a tiny device signaled a revolution. I love how the future often starts in the background. He used a massive Radio Shack unit that looked like a heavy piece of luggage. It was our first glimpse of a life without wires. Known as the 17003, this machine stretched the definition of what we call mobile. We've certainly come a long way. It was an 11-pound beast, complete with its own bag and power supply. A true commitment for anyone wanting to stay connected. Seeing that tech in 1987 felt like a transmission from a distant galaxy. It was the spark of a new world. This early tool cost $3,000, a massive investment for the time. It's incredible what we pay for a bit of freedom. That sum could have bought a car, hinting at some very interesting choices by the department. Or maybe he just liked being first. What makes it stick is how the movie treats the tech as perfectly ordinary. It didn't need to prove how cool it was. The director never lingered on the device, letting it simply exist in the world. The future was here, and it was just working. It was a quiet promise that everything was about to change. While others took the credit later, this story was there from the start. The film led the way without any need for celebration. But the real story began with a $250,000 gamble. While most young adults were barely getting by, one 23-year-old was reimagining what a hero could be. It was pure creative fire. After creating it, the newcomer almost threw the whole thing away. Sometimes we can't see the masterpiece while we are painting it. With no connections, he spent his days mailing letters to a city that wasn't listening. It's the ultimate dreamer's struggle. He was shouting into the darkness until he wrote the story of those two detectives. That desperation is what made the script bleed. In a frantic 6-week sprint, he poured his life into those pages. You can feel that raw energy in every pulse-pounding moment. He envisioned a broken man and a steady veteran in a world full of danger. It was a gritty vision that felt incredibly alive. Feeling defeated, he tossed his work into the bin, convinced it was worthless. Imagine all the classics that almost ended up as trash. A friend rescued that script, and suddenly every major studio was knocking on his door. His life changed in a heartbeat. The fight for the rights became a frenzy, much like a crowd rushing for a limited prize. Everyone wanted a piece of that magic. In the end, the young writer walked away with a staggering $250,000. It was the start of a legendary career. That equals nearly $700,000 today for a kid who started with nothing. It's the kind of miracle we all crave. Half a year prior, a single transaction sent tremors through the entire movie business. Studios suddenly understood that an anonymous creator holding a brilliant manuscript could change the game. Enormous fortunes were suddenly up for grabs, igniting a desperate search for fresh narratives. Dreamers who previously worked in total silence were finally being invited into the inner sanctum. Corporate bidding wars turned into a high-stakes competition, and Black climbed that ladder faster than anyone imagined. His gritty noir project commanded $1.75 million in 1990. Later, in 1994, he broke every record by selling a female-led thriller for $4 million. At that moment, it was the highest price ever paid for a script written on spec. The person who could not even get an assistant to answer his mail was now the most expensive pen for hire in the industry in under 10 years. It is a miracle of fate, considering his future was once sitting at the bottom of a trash can. There you have it. 15 bizarre and fascinating tales behind the creation of a legend. I am curious which of these hidden gems stayed with you the most. Share your thoughts in the section below, and pass this video to that pal who still complains about being far too seasoned for these shenanigans. Until our next trip down memory lane, stay nostalgic.